The following interview is with Paul Kingsnorth, an Englishman living on a small farm in Western Ireland. He's an acclaimed novelist, essayist, and poet. And he has quite a remarkable story of coming to Christianity and Orthodoxy in particular. That was one of the main reasons I wanted to talk to him, to get his story recorded. He wrote a lovely essay called The Cross and the Machine in First Things, which I will link to below this video. And you can read more in depth his story. How would you respond to those with concerns about a subversive environmentalist agenda?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, I think this, I think one of the things I've discovered since becoming a Christian, starting to talk to Americans, is how different American Christianity is from anything we have in Europe. Really, it's very different. I mean, when I see pictures of a guy with a cross in one hand and a Trump flag in the other, you know, I think, okay, what's happening here? So you've got a very politicized Christianity over there. Obviously, you have a very kind of religious right that's been very powerful for a long time. But also, you know, there's a very strong Christian left, it seems to me as well, which is very kind of almost in reaction against him. You know, we don't have anything like that over here. So it's not my experience of it at all. I mean, as I say, Britain is very, very unreligious, very irreligious. And Ireland, you know, obviously has been Catholic for a long time. The church is still quite fairly powerful here and controversial, but it doesn't infiltrate politics at all. There's no sort of political Christianity. So I'm not familiar with that. And I'm very glad actually that I'm not familiar with it. And in my church, in Orthodoxy over here, it's very much a kind of, you know, it's a sort of church of immigrants mainly, not entirely. There are people like me and Irish people who are part of it too, but it's very much from the East. So it doesn't have that flavor to it at all. There's no sort of sense of politicking. So, and I don't look at Orthodox stuff online actually, or Christian stuff online very deliberately, because I don't want to be involved in it. I think it would just ruin the whole thing for me. I just want to go to the church and do the work. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a tragedy really what's happened. The environmentalism, like everything else, especially in America, but over here in Europe too, has become very politicized. You know, the right have decided it's a conspiracy and the left have decided that they're all for it. And, you know, it's so narrow and tribal and ridiculous. The notion of protecting the natural world from destruction is really not a partisan issue, or it shouldn't be. There are plenty of arguments you can have about how to do it. But when you come across this stuff about how environmentalism is a conspiracy to give power to the UN or whatever, I mean, it's people need to distinguish between political manifestations of environmentalism, which they may or may not like, and plenty of them are left wing. I mean, environmentalism is a very left movement, at least partly because the right has completely ignored it. Right? I mean, you could have a decent conservative environmentalism if you wanted, but no one on the right seems to want one, so that's their problem. But you have to distinguish between the political manifestation of things and the actual problem again. And again, you need to come back to the beauty, and you need to come back to creation, and you need to come back to the fundamental question. I mean, do you think we should be destroying all of the world's forests? Do you think we should be causing the sixth mass extinction that we're living in? Do you think the ocean should be full of plastic? Do you think your children should be breathing poisoned air? Nobody wants that stuff to happen if they're sane, whatever their politics are. So, you know, that actually is what it comes down to, not whether you like kind of Naomi Klein or not, you know, or whether you agree with the World Bank or whatever. Those are separate questions. You can have as many arguments as you like about what we should do about these things, and they'll go on forever. But fundamentally, you know, if you're a Christian, especially, the question I always ask is, look, do you think it's Christian to be destroying creation? It's a fundamental thing. I mean, look, you go and read the first book of Genesis. God creates the world in 6 days. And every time, at the end of every day, he says, and he saw that it was good. He saw that it was good. It creates the birds, the animals, the whole earth. You've got this great story about this creator who creates this enormous creation of beauty, and he sees that it's good. The only thing he doesn't see that's good is humans, interestingly, which he creates last. And that's because we're not finished yet, as we have demonstrated. So how Christian is it precisely to destroy creation for the benefit of our own greed, when we know very well that God created something good that he wanted us to be stewards of, that he gave us responsibility for? I don't see anything Christian about that, and I don't see that anything Christ taught fits with it at all. There's no humility or love in it. And that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about politics, left, right, environmentalism, or any of that stuff. We're talking about whether we should be destroying the rest of life and whether that's a way that we should be behaving. And I think everybody knows the answer to that, actually, whether they're Christian or not. So that's what I usually say. But as I say, it's so much of this stuff gets caught up in the tribalism of politics that sometimes it's difficult to get through. But that to me, it's actually it's a very simple kind of moral issue in a way.
Yeah, well, and if it is an issue, then it just kind of underlines, if a person was self-reflective, they would see, oh, actually, I'm not that interested in the gospel. I'm actually just interested in right-wing political.
I'm interested in owning the liberals rather than. This is the thing. It's this kind of, and obviously you see this, and not just in Christianity, and you see it on all sorts of sides of the debate, but people who want to channel the faith into whatever pre-existing political position they had, and then just use it as a kind of weapon. And if you want to, you can go and find stuff Jesus said, and you can use it for any position because he didn't fit into any box, obviously. So, but it's just so obviously not the point that it's frustrating. But like I say, I'm sort of, in that sense alone, grateful not to be an American Christian. It seems to be very enveloping over there, and I'm spared it, thankfully.
It is suffocating and very, very disheartening.
I tend to think that, I also get attacked by the left and the right, so I tend to think that if you're getting attacks from everywhere, you're probably doing something right. There's something you're doing that is, but it's also the internet culture is unreflective. It's designed for people to just immediately punch you when they think you're saying something that you're not saying at all. And as you say, it is disheartening. But I suppose you just have to do the work. And they're always, the other thing about it I've noticed is that the people who are loudest and most aggressive, they're just the ones who do that. Whereas actually the people who appreciate the work are usually the quiet ones. They don't necessarily even feel the need to tell you, but they take it in. Whereas the ones who are shouting at you, that's just what they do. Yeah. They'll be shouting at someone else in 5 minutes.
Right. But
they don't necessarily reflect actually what most people are doing, I think.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So one has to develop a bit of a thick skin.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's no alternative, is there? It's tricky sometimes, but
yeah.
Did years burn out those words? Did a voice whisper absurd? Did your mind comprehend and ask if you'd last till the end?